Yeah, welcome in. Welcome back to another live episode of the Format Podcast. That's right. That's right. Special Thursday night episode today. Still gonna do the Saturday night episode this weekend, but I haven't put out anything for a few days, and since I guess last Saturday's live, so I wanted to come out and give my thoughts on some of the stories that I thought were interesting, and hopefully you think are interesting as well. So let me just give a few minutes, see who comes in the chat, and then we'll go from there. Okay, we'll go ahead and get started here. If you're coming in the chat, make sure you like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Make sure you like the show, and yeah, let's get right to it. So, we got some good topics today. Obviously, today is Thursday, and normally I would be doing a Throwback Thursday episode. And well, it looks like fate kind of decided what the topic of that was going to be, and as you see there, that is going to be our first topic. Legendary Bill Walton, and we'll get to that. But yeah, have some interesting topics here and some thoughts I want to share. So at this point, what I'm going to do is get started. But before we get to those topics, you know what time it is. If you're here on YouTube and you haven't already, please make sure you go ahead, click that like, that subscribe, that notification bell. Make sure you're kept up to date whenever we drop new content on the channel. If you want the audio only version of the podcast, open up your audio podcast platform, hit the search bar, type in The Format Podcast, and we should come right up. If you're enjoying the content, make sure you give us that like, that 5-star review, and drop a comment. All that stuff helps us rise in the algorithm, helps us find more sports fans, helps more sports fans find us. And finally, make sure you write it down, put it in your phone, set an alarm, do whatever you got to do to remember. Saturday nights at 7 p.m. we are live here on the Format Podcast, and we'll give you the opportunity to call in, talk to us, get at me. I love it. I can't wait. All right, just another friendly reminder. If you're here in the chat, please make sure you give us a like. All that stuff helps us, helps YouTube hit the algorithm, helps us push out the show to more people. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to grow here. Make sure you like it and make sure you share it. All right, cool. Yeah, so today's Thursday, and normally I would be doing a standalone Throwback Thursday episode, but I figured I would add it in since I was doing a live show tonight. And so, as you can see, the topic here is going to be the one and only Bill Walton. And well, like I said, fate did decide for me what this topic was going to be. So this was actually interesting how this kind of played out because last week I was on Instagram and I'm scrolling through my feed and I got an interesting post and I shared it with some of the guys that I usually, well, my guys that I talk to like every day, and we debate sports and we talk about all that stuff. And so I wanted to share it with you guys because it kind of fit. And this post here has all these guys who are all-time greats who got derailed by injury. And so the question on the top of the post was, which of these would have been the best player if they had stayed healthy? And I'm like, man, that's really tough because you got some serious all-time names there. Obviously, Derrick Rose, Penny Hardaway, Amari Stoudemire, Brandon Roy, Tracy McGrady, Pistol Pete, Grant Hill, Chris Webber, obviously Bill Walton there, and of course Yao Ming. So you look at all these guys, and these are all guys who, I mean, you got some who are Hall of Famers already: McGrady, Grant Hill, C. Webb, Yao Ming, Bill Walton, and of course Pistol Pete. But you wonder if injuries had not really hit those guys, just how far their career could have risen, like what type of trajectory they were on, because a lot of them were on, you know, they were really on rocket ship level trajectories in terms of what they could be. I don't know how many of you are old enough to remember like what Penny Hardaway was when he was young. We saw, what was that, in his, I guess his second season. He and Shaq went to the finals together, 1995. That was crazy. Brandon Roy, Grant Hill. What's up? It's not that serious. Glad to see you, man. Yeah, that is a crazy list, right? It's some serious names on there. And so I shared that list with my guys that I talk sports with, And we were back and forth on it because, to your point, there are some serious names on there. And I could only really get down to two. I couldn't get down to one guy who would have had the best career if they hadn't been injured. I got down to two guys. And the two guys I got down to were, and this is not to kind of hijack the discussion, but the two guys I got down to were Bill Walton and Grant Hill. Bill Walton obviously came from an earlier generation, but Grant Hill was also that dude, man. He was probably the next great guy if he didn't get injured. I mean, this is a guy that could pass it. This is a guy that could score it. This is the guy that could lock down, defend. I mean, lightning first step. The jumper wasn't crazy, but that would have developed in time. And Grant Hill he was so special. He and Jason Kidd were co-rookies of the year when they first came into the league. I mean, Grant Hill was amazing. So if you can remember that, a lot of great names on that list. And so, but Bill Walton, this is actually the subject of Throwback Thursday. So let's get to him. So you saw it on the screen there, and I gave it some thought. And like I said, that I was stuck between Grant Hill and Bill Walton, so I'm not going to decide on one. I think those two would have had the best careers had they not been injured. And so the funny thing about it, when I sent it to my guys, we got into a heated argument because when I said Grant Hill and Bill Walton, one of them told me that he believes that Bill Walton was severely overrated. And I'm like, yo, are you crazy? Do you have any idea how good Bill Walton was at his peak? Like, that dude was insane, right? So we were arguing about this for maybe a couple hours, like on the text chain that we have, right, on the WhatsApp thread. And so it was just back and forth. We were really going at it. So he thought that, and I don't, and we were back and forth. But then less than a week later, the news drops. Bill Walton, aka the Big Red, died at the age of 71 of cancer after a battle with cancer. And it was just crazy that we had just been talking about Bill Walton a few days prior to that, right? So we've heard the sports media all week kind of giving out their tributes to Bill Walton. But here's mine. I'm gonna go ahead and talk about him and discuss a little bit what I see and um, why I think he's so great and why I think he should be the subject of a Throwback Thursday, because I really don't think a lot of people who are call themselves basketball fans understand how good this dude was. So before we get into his career, I'm going to tell you my quick Bill Walton story, right? So way back, maybe this is around year 2000, maybe 2001, probably around the year 2000, somewhere right in there. I used to live in New York City, and I worked at the Foot Action. It's probably a if it's still there, it's probably a Foot Locker now, but it's right on the corner of 34th Street and 8th Avenue, one block over from Madison Square Garden in Manhattan. And I used to work there. And so Bill Walton came in there, the all-time what if team, Penny, Roy, T Mac, Bender, Odin. Oh wow. Whew. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, whew, that is a mean all-time what if team. Absolutely. What up, man? Down. Appreciate you popping in. But yeah, so I'm working in the Foot Action there, and Bill Walton was there doing he was doing an autograph signing. And you know how sometimes the stores will have those things. They'll have somebody come in and do an autograph signing, kind of drum up business and all that, right? So Bill Walton's there, and cool dude, right? So after my shift is over, I'm lucky enough I get in line, and Bill Walton is so freaking tall, right? I'm 6 feet tall, and he's almost as tall sitting down as I am standing up, right? So anyway, I'm in the line, and the line goes, and he's signing his stuff, and he's just a real cool dude. He's like smoking and joking with all the people that's in line, et cetera. So not actually smoking and joking is just an expression that we use in the military, just having a good fun, having a good time, and just being silly. And so he's just joking with all the different people coming up, signing autographs and stuff, right? And so my turn comes up, and I'm standing in front of Bill Walton, and he's looking at me, and I'm looking at him, and I just say to him, "Throw it down, big man." And he smiles at me and he goes, "Throw it down one time." And so, he signed my autograph. But that's my Bill Walton story. Like, he was just so cool. And, after he got done playing, he was broadcasting and all that. He was known for his quirky things that he used to say and what he was, as a broadcaster. And that was one of the things that I remembered so much. Like, when he would see a big that wasn't doing what he thought a big man should do in terms of getting down to the block and getting busy. For instance, that would be something he would tell Joel Embiid, right? "Throw it down, big man. Throw it down one time." When he sees Joel hanging out and shooting all these long J's and threes and whatnot, or Karl Anthony Towns, right? Get down there and do your work as a big. So that was my Bill Walton story. I was lucky enough to meet him, and I thought that was so cool, man. Because yeah, it's not that serious. It definitely was a cool experience, man. Real nice guy, funny guy, real nice guy. But yeah. So um, that said, and quick side note, I didn't know this until I was doing research for this show. His older brother, Bruce Walton, his older brother's a year older than him. He played for the Dallas Cowboys, so that's that's a pretty damn athletic family. They played basketball together in high school, and then they played basketball together at UCLA. But then the brother kind of really focused on football. He ends up playing for the Cowboys, so very athletic family. So anyway, um, now, when you talk about Bill Walton, I guess the story kind of starts. The main part of the story starts in college, and he's playing for UCLA under the great John Wooden. And I think if you're going to talk about the best college basketball players ever, I remember we had this whole thing with Caitlin Clark earlier this year, talking about who the best college basketball players of all time are. And if you are talking male and female, there's just no question. Clearly, the greatest college basketball player of all time is who? Lou Alcindor, now Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, right? But um, I think there's a very short list and probably no argument if you said that Bill Walton is the second greatest college basketball player of all time. He kind of stepped in and filled that role. I think Lou Alcindor left UCLA in maybe 1969 or 1970, and Bill Walton, I believe, got there in 71. And so they had a run UCLA of like 7 straight national championships. Bill Walton was part of that, and it's crazy. This guy is 3-time National Player of the Year. He's a 2-time national champion, 2-time Final Four most outstanding player. Obviously, Lou Alcindor was a 3-time national champion, 3-time most outstanding player of the Final Four. But Bill Walton was right there. And this is crazy. Between high school and college, Bill Walton had a personal win streak of 142 games won, which is about 5 years long, including the NCAA men's record, which was 88 game winning streak, which is absurd. And not even the great Lou Alcindor, who I just finished telling you is the greatest college basketball player of all time, and he is, not even he was able to have a winning streak like that. So that tells you what Bill Walton was able to do collegiately under the tutelage of the great John Wooden. So I mean that tells you how special a college player he was. And his college career ends. He has a record of 86-4, and he averaged 20 points, 16 rebounds, 5.5 assists per game. And if you looked at Bill Walton, like go back and watch the highlights. He was an incredible passer for a big. Obviously, he wasn't running point like Jokic does because that's just not what bigs did back then. But if you watch him as an interior passer and even an outlet passer, he was just a great passer. And he could shoot the ball. He probably would have been more fit for this era than he was for his own era, which is kind of crazy, right? So anyway, he goes on to be number 1 pick of the Trailblazers, and of course, he's just doing his thing. He's getting busy, and in 1976 they won a championship. But it's not even that they won the championship. And here you see some of his UCLA footage. Quick note: blocks weren't being counted when he was in college, so who knows how many blocks he was getting. But anyway, when he won the championship in 1976, that was the first time the Trailblazers had ever been to the playoffs. And check out the run that he went on, who he went through to get that championship in 76. So in the first round, he beats Artis Gilmore, Hall of Famer, with the Chicago Bulls. Second round, he beats Dan Issel with the Denver Nuggets, Hall of Famer. Third round, he sweeps Kareem Abdul-Jabbar with the Lakers, 4 games to nothing. Obviously Hall of Famer and top 5 or maybe even top 3, depends on who you are, player of all time. Then in the finals, he beats Dr. J in the Philadelphia 76ers. So Hall of Famer in every single round of the playoffs. He beats them all en route to his championship as the main cog on that team. Bill Walton was freaking incredible when he was young. He was that dude. But the problem was injuries, man. Injuries really, like a lot of bigs, he had a lot of foot problems, lower foot extremities, he was breaking toes, he was damaging his leg, a lot of injury issues. What do we got here? Uh, Uh-oh, here we go. Add Bill Walton to all the big men I have above Jokic. Okay, we're not gonna make this a referendum on Jokic. Jokic is doing his thing for this era. I've talked about that. We can get to that on another show. But yes, there are a number of big men I have above Jokic. But it's the whole prisoner of the moment thing. And Somebody smart told me that if you're in the NBA media, you have a responsibility to grow the game. I wonder where I heard that from, man down. Anyway, um, let's see. People today try to redefine greatness. True greatness, you know it when you see it. Those who are all-time greats are rarely duplicated. Absolutely, absolutely. Um, but yeah, so back to Bill Walton. Yeah, he was that dude, man. That was a hell of a run that he went on to win that championship as the guy. And he followed that up the next season, winning most valuable player. By the way, the previous season where he beat Kareem and Dr. J to win his championship, he was second in the league in MVP voting behind Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. So, I mean, people really don't know how good he was in his prime. But again, injuries pretty much ruined his career. He ends up playing for the San Diego Clippers. That was before they moved to LA and all that. But he ended up playing for them for a few years. And again, he had like an 8-year stretch where he was really getting beat up by injuries and and wasn't really able to take advantage of his God-given abilities and his basketball intelligence to be able to do the things that he should have been able to do, right? Injuries really, really slowed him down. But and this to me really speaks to Bill Walton's greatness is the fact that he he won a championship as the main guy. He obviously was league MVP. He got darn near crippled by injuries, hung around, ends up going to the Boston Celtics, and he wins a championship in 1986. That's a team that most people regard as one of the greatest teams of all time. I have them in my top 5 teams of all time. That team was incredible. I think they were 40-1 at home on the season, and obviously they went on to win the championship. And it's quick note, it's a crying shame that Olajuwon and Ralph Sampson and the Rockets upset the Lakers in the Western Conference Finals, because that was probably going to be one of the best finals matchups that we have ever seen. And obviously, you can't go back and change it, but that would have been a 7-game classic, and I would have loved to see it. But man, that Celtics team in '86 was just out of this world. But anyway, what I was saying about Bill Walton, what impressed me is he went from being the guy, he fought through the injuries, he ends up in Boston, he becomes a sixth man. He's off the bench, first guy off the bench, and wins the Sixth Man of the Year award. So he wasn't just riding along for another chip. He was a legitimate contributor to that team. And so to me, that says a whole lot. The fact that, you know, he was in that position to be that and to do that. And not only that, that shows that he could humble his ego. He understood he wasn't that guy anymore, and he was smart enough, because obviously that was a very cerebral team, not the most athletic, but he understood his role. He played his role as best he could, and he was rewarded for it. So absolutely just a phenomenal player, man. But even beyond all that, this is the thing. After he retired from playing, he became one of the best and most entertaining broadcasters of the game. Whether it was college, he did a lot of Pac-12 stuff, and yeah, no, you're right. It's not that serious. Imagine Bill Walton had the mentality of players today. Well, I would rather say, imagine if the players of today had Bill Walton's mentality. I think there would be a lot better players. But you know, you got what you got, and I think that the times that you live in and the times that you grow up in greatly affect your mentality and how you see things and how you go about things. And we live in a time that doesn't necessarily breed the type of people and the type of men that it used to. You know what I'm saying? It's the same thing like our parents look at us and say, man, you're weaker. And we look at our kids and say, man, you're weaker. And our grandparents looked at our parents. Each generation, unfortunately, is successively weaker. And that's just because times are not as hard. They're not forced to do the same things and go through the same trials and tribulations. But it is what it is. But yeah, Bill Walton, he became at that point, he retires, he becomes a broadcaster, and he and Steve Snapper Jones were one of the best one of the best crews on the NBA games, and those dudes used to go at it, and they were super entertaining, super entertaining. That's where I got the whole throw it down, big man, throw it down one time thing, because you know that was one of Bill Walton's lines. He used to love that one. And then he was doing Pac-12 stuff, obviously, well, Pac-10 back then, but obviously, you know, being a UCLA guy and a West Coast guy, he was doing a lot of coverage for that. And if you just go on YouTube and you look up Bill Walton and watch some of the videos, some of the times he's on the call, you're like, what is this guy talking about? But he's funny, you know, he's really entertaining, man. And so He always had a great story to tell, whether it's about the great John Wooden or Larry Bird or Maurice Lucas or Dr. J or Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, whoever it was, or all his basketball influences or his experiences, or even the Grateful Dead. He was known as a deadhead, a big Grateful Dead guy. So, Bill Walton, yeah, he was that guy, man. And obviously, NBA 50 greatest, NBA 75 greatest. He had a son. Well, I think he's got three sons and a daughter. One of the sons, Luke Walton, played in the NBA, won a couple championships with the Lakers, ended up being the Lakers head coach, and coincidentally another victim of LeBron, but that's another story. But he, Lakers head coach, and just he I think that you can say with Bill Walton, even though he died at the age of 71, he lived a very full life. And so, that's that. But yeah, I wanted to come on here and for my first segment, just make that my throwback Thursday and talk about the late great Bill Walton. And yeah, I will go ahead at this point, give a moment of silence, then I'll open up the phone lines in case anybody wants to call in and say anything about Bill Walton. So let's take a moment of silence here for Bill Walton. Okay, so all right, so I'm gonna go ahead and open up the phone lines here. Only a couple people in the chat, so if you want to call in, you can do that. If not, we will go ahead and move right on to the next topic, which kind of piqued my interest.